Welcome to our channel. We made it through the surgery. He walked into the recovery room, and when I looked at his face, I no longer saw just a husband. I saw an action hero with a kind heart. She, the star of The Sound of Music, was the one who once saved a child from drowning right on screen. Robert Urich and Heather Menses. They were Hollywood's forgotten love story, but no one talks about how that story ended. Cancer took their world away, cruelly and without mercy. Tragedies struck one after another, and one of them died exactly 15 years after the other on the same day, at the same time, down to the exact minute. That's no longer just a coincidence. What really happened to Robert and Heather is almost too heartbreaking to believe. They once called Robert Urich the actor with the most TV series in history, 15 different shows. That alone was enough to make him a legend. Two people, one love, and an ending so painful it's hard to believe it's real. But his story is not just about numbers. It's a relentless journey of surprising the audience from action hero to dramatic actor, then becoming a singer on the Broadway stage, and later a respected documentary host. While many actors get typecast, Robert breaks every boundary. This is a story that has moved millions. And today you'll be the next one. Leave a comment with one if you're ready to uncover the truth behind the smiles on camera, and don't forget to like, share, and follow the channel so you don't miss stories that touch the heart. He came from a background as a football player in Ohio, with no connections, no industry background, only talent charm, and one important friend, Burt Reynolds. It was Burt who discovered and helped him from the very beginning, opening the first big opportunity in his career. That was in 1975 with the series S-Wait, where Robert played Officer Jim Street, a tough but likable cop. Although the show only lasted until 1976 because it was considered too violent, it brought Robert's image into millions of homes across America. He was no longer just a promising new face. He became a rising star. Then came Vega. From 1978 to 1981, Robert played Dan Tana, a stylish private detective in the heart of Las Vegas. The show wasn't just a TV hit, it was a cultural phenomenon. He drove a 1957 red Ford Thunderbird through neon-lit streets, solving cases in a sharp suit and with a half smile. That car replaced a yellow Corvette that was burned in the first episode. That Thunderbird became a symbol just like he did. This role earned Robert 2 Golden Globe nominations, and more importantly, turned him into the ideal man's role model, intelligent, sophisticated, and always in control of the situation. For a long time, Robert was a familiar face in primetime television. But he didn't stop there. For over 3 decades, Robert conquered American television in a way that very few have. "15 leading roles across every genre. He played a goofy tennis coach in the comedy Soap. He took on the role of a spy in Gavilan. He even led a Western series, The Lazarus Man, in the mid-90s. From 1973 to 2001, he was almost never off the screen. But Robert wasn't the type to play it safe. He constantly reinvented himself, challenged his limits, and broke every mold. He didn't want to be labeled a one-note actor. He wanted to do it all. Then came Spencer for Hire, which was more than just a detective series. From 1985 to 1988, the show brought Massachusetts about $50 million in revenue by filming on location in Boston, creating an authentic, cold, and intense atmosphere. Robert and co-star Avery Brooks as Hawk formed an irreplaceable duo between justice and humanity. The show didn't rely on car chases or gunfights. It delved deep into the human nature. Later, Robert returned as Spencer in 4 made-for-TV movies, proving the lasting vitality of both the character and himself. But just when people thought they had seen all there was to know about Robert Urich, he stepped into an unexpected role, host of National Geographic Explorer. From 1988 to 1995, his warm, deep voice became the voice of wonder, guiding audiences to explore the world from the deepest oceans to ancient civilizations. He didn't just read the scripts, he lived them. Because of this, Robert won an Emmy in 1992 and a Cable Ace Award in 1993 for the documentary series Terror on Our Shores. He also won another Cable Ace Award for hosting On Assignment, a prestigious program, not a shallow entertainment show. He could have stopped there and still been remembered as a legend. But Robert had one final chapter, and perhaps the most moving one. In 2000, while fighting a rare connective tissue cancer called synovial sarcoma that had tormented him since 1996, Robert made his Broadway debut. He played Billy Flynn in the play Chicago from January 5th to February 13th. Before that, he had performed the role on tours through Detroit and Washington, D.C., but this time it was at the prestigious Schubert Theater. And he left the audience stunned not only by his acting, but by a voice that truly touched their hearts. There was something special in his eyes every time he stepped onto the stage. As his wife once said, there was a sparkle in those eyes, a light of faith despite the pain. Robert Urich was not just a star. He was a living testament to resilience, boundless talent, and love. Love for his craft, for his audience, and for his life partner. Heather Menses and Robert Urich. They may not be as frequently mentioned as other legendary Hollywood couples, but their story, a tale of love, pain, and overcoming it all, deserves to be told over and over again. Even while undergoing chemotherapy and exhausted from illness, he still made the whole room light up every time he walked in. Heather Menses was born on December 3, 1949 in Toronto, Canada, into a family of Scottish descent. Her parents were refugees who left behind a war-torn England after World War II to seek a new beginning. Her father was a painter trying to rebuild his career from the ashes, but instead of opportunity, they faced poverty, disorientation, and could only cling to hope. It was precisely this tough immigrant life that forged in Heather a quality Hollywood couldn't teach: grit. Before turning 14, she had lived in 4 cities across 2 countries: Vancouver, Miami, London, and Southern California. Every time her father's painting career failed, the family moved to a new place. She had to get used to new accents, new school systems, new friends, and do it all over again repeatedly. That turbulent life left her exhausted, but it also built her flexibility and adaptability skills that later became advantages when stepping into Hollywood. Then at 14, Heather went to an audition with no acting experience, no agent, no fame, just a faint previous appearance on television. It was the casting for The Sound of Music. Hundreds of girls lined up, most with thick portfolios and formal training from a young age. But Heather had nothing except one thing no one can teach: authenticity. That's what made her stand out. And in the blink of an eye, Heather was cast as Louisa Von Trapp. Filming wasn't just about romantic singing scenes in the Alps. There was a terrifying moment that almost turned the movie into a real tragedy. In the scene where the boat capsizes, 5-year-old Kim Carath, who played Gretel, didn't know how to swim. When the boat flipped, she sank twice underwater. The cameras were still rolling. Julie Andrews, the lead star, fell in the opposite direction. The entire crew was stunned, but Heather was not. She immediately swam toward Kim, pulled her to the surface, and saved her life. Kim had swallowed a lot of water, got sick, and later developed a lifelong fear of water. Yet the scene remained in the final cut. The audience saw the real moment. It was Heather rescuing her young co-star. When The Sound of Music premiered on March 2, 1965, it created a cinematic sensation. The film won 5 Oscars and became the highest-grossing movie of all time by 1966, earning over $286 million and selling 283 million tickets. It topped the box office in 29 countries. And in the blink of an eye, the little-known girl from an immigrant family became a global star. Heather was only 15 years old at the time. But Heather didn't want to be forever boxed in as the sweet girl Louisa. In 1973, she made a bold move, posing nude for Playboy magazine in a feature called Tender Trap. The title was a play on words, referencing her famous role in The Sound of Music. But the message was clear: she was no longer the child she once was. The public was shocked. Just 8 years earlier, she had been an innocent young girl in a family film. Now she was taking control of her own image, even if it made fans who still saw her through that old lens uncomfortable. That same year, she starred in one of the strangest horror films of the decade, playing Christina, the daughter of a mad scientist who turns people into snakes. The film was bizarre, low budget, and used real snakes. But Heather didn't flinch. Despite the strange premise, critics still described her as sweet and charming. In every role, no matter how offbeat Heather proved, she wasn't content with fading into the background. She wanted to break boundaries. In 1977, she took on the role of Jessica Six in the TV series Logan's Run set, in a future world where people are eliminated at age 30. Although the show only lasted 14 episodes, Jessica's revealing costume and rebellious spirit made Heather stand out. At one point, CBS executives panicked, saying she looked too sexy for a show aimed at younger audiences. They demanded costume adjustments, adding tights and pink underwear. But Heather didn't back down because this was who she truly was at that point in her life. In 1978, Heather had the biggest breakthrough of her career starring in Piranha, a horror film that became a cult phenomenon produced by B-movie legend Roger Corman. With a budget of just $700,000, the film went on to gross $16 million. Even Steven Spielberg praised it, and Universal quietly dropped its lawsuit. In the film, Heather played Maggie McKeown, a tough, fearless investigator. She held her own alongside veteran male actors in the horror genre, and her performance was a key reason Piranha became a classic. And then love arrived in the most unexpected way. Robert Urich and Heather Menses met while playing husband and wife in a 1974 commercial for Libby's canned meat. It sounds funny, but that moment changed their lives. At the time, Heather was 25, recently divorced, trying to move on from a short-lived young marriage. Robert was 28, handsome, strong, and on the rise in Hollywood. At first, it was just acting two people playing a happy couple in a short ad. But something real happened. It felt too real. Even when the cameras stopped rolling, the emotions lingered. What started as pretend affection turned into something genuine. And from an ordinary day on set, they began a love story that would last 27 years. Robert wasn't just some struggling actor. Just 1 year later in 1975, SWAT premiered and made him a star. He played Jim Street, a tough but compassionate cop, winning the hearts of viewers across the country. But that success didn't come by chance. Robert worked hard to reshape his image, bulking up from 180 to 220 pounds of muscle just to fit the role of an action hero. He had the looks, the talent, and the right kind of friends. One of them was Burt Reynolds, who opened the first major door by convincing producer Aaron Spelling to give Robert a shot. And so two people, an immigrant girl who once saved her co-star on set, and a strong, unconventional man who refused to fit the mold, found each other. Together, they wrote a beautiful, quiet, yet deeply inspiring love story. In Hollywood, where true love is often seen as the rarest thing of all. After just one audition, Aaron Spelling was completely convinced, and thus Robert Urich began his journey to rise. As for Heather, she was also at a pivotal crossroads in her life. She had once been truly famous, genuinely famous, at just 15 years old playing Louisa Von Trapp in The Sound of Music, one of the most iconic films of all time. But childhood stardom doesn't last forever. When she met Robert, Heather was working hard to step out of the shadow of her youth and transform into a truly grown-up actress. She was also healing from a 4-year marriage that had started when she was just 20. Robert, too, had once been married to his college girlfriend, Barbara Rucker. That marriage ended quietly, but it left him guarded. So when Robert decided to marry Heather just over a year after they met, it took many by surprise. Some even saw it as a bit of a leap. They got married on November 21st, 1975. Fast, very fast. But everyone who knew them said the same thing: it was right. Robert once told friends that he knew Heather was the one after just a few weeks of knowing her. And this wasn't Hollywood cliché, it was genuine feeling. Their love came quickly, but it wasn't a fleeting crush. It was a deep connection, a rare kind, especially in the entertainment world. They became one of Hollywood's rare couples, no drama, no gimmicks. Heather had her own cinematic legacy. Robert was steadily becoming a television king. By 1978, when Robert starred in Vega, a stylish crime series that ran for 3 years and earned him 2 Golden Globe nominations, they officially became familiar names not just individually, but as a beloved couple across America. The paparazzi are obsessed with them. Magazine covers constantly feature their names. But it's not just because they look good together. It's the way they look at each other. It's not about selling a brand, not a performance for the public. It's real love. And Robert isn't shy about showing it. From the very beginning, he made an effort to bring Heather into his world, not out of obligation, but because he wanted to share his life. Heather appeared in 3 episodes of Vega Dow and later in Spencer for Hire. But it was never about getting a role. It was a statement: your success is my success. We are one. When Heather decided to gradually step away from acting to focus on family, Robert gave her his full support. In an industry where ego often overshadows emotion, that kind of support was almost unheard of. Right after their wedding in 1975, Heather discovered she was pregnant. They had never planned it, but both were overwhelmed with joy. "We were so happy we cried," Heather once shared. But that happiness was short-lived. She suffered a miscarriage. The pain was truly brutal, and it didn't stop there. Heather miscarried 2 more times. 3 pregnancies, 3 losses. Each time, they lost a part of their hope. From anticipation, it turned into worry. From worry into fear. Friends began to worry whether the couple could endure such prolonged emotional pain. Do you resonate with this deeply moving story? If yes, leave a 2. If not, comment 5. Don't forget to enjoy the video and hit the subscribe button to support the channel so I can make more meaningful videos. All of this happened right as both their careers were reaching new heights. Under the spotlight, they were icons, but behind the scenes, their family life was quietly falling apart. After the third miscarriage, they knew something had to change, and so they made a difficult decision to adopt. It wasn't an easy path. They had to wait on a list and go through a long, complicated process. But finally, in 1978, they welcomed their first child, Ryan. Then came Emily in 1980, and nearly 20 years later, in 1998, they adopted Allison. The time gap was no coincidence. They wanted each child to be loved, cared for, and given their own time to grow up fully. Ryan became an infectious disease doctor. He once said, "I chose medicine because I couldn't help Dad when he was sick, but I can help others." Emily became a nurse and now works in the emergency department in Ontario. All three children chose paths of healing, perhaps because from a young age they witnessed their father bravely fighting every day just to stay alive. As for Heather, she made the decision to sacrifice her career. She was once a rising star Louisa in The Sound of Music, Jessica 6 in Logan's Run. She was famous, busy, and full of promise. But she chose to step back to be a wife, a mother, a source of strength for her family. And that was not an easy decision, especially in Hollywood, where careers are often put before everything else. But Heather and Robert were not a Hollywood couple. They were a family built on lost courage and a love that was real, the kind of love that didn't need to be proven with pictures, but through quiet, steady, and unconditional presence for nearly 3 decades. When they adopted their daughter, Heather made the conscious choice to step away from the spotlight. Hollywood was never used to the image of a rising woman star choosing to walk away, but Heather did just that. After 1979, she all but disappeared from the screen. Just a few small roles remained, a couple of guest appearances on Vega, a brief spot on T.J. Hooker, a supporting role in the film Endangered Species. And then, nothing. Not because opportunities ran out, but because she chose this path. She chose family, chose her children, chose a stable home over the spotlight. Robert broke the mold in his own way, too. He wasn't the kind of father who left the kids with a nanny while he stayed busy on set. Despite being one of the busiest actors on television with 15 leading roles over the span of 30 years, Robert was always present for the important moments. On the set of Spencer for Hire, he even had a clause written into his contract allowing him to fly across the country whenever his daughter Emily had a doctor's appointment. In the 1980s, that was almost unheard of. To Robert, being a father wasn't just about being there, it was about understanding his children. When Ryan misbehaved or acted out, Robert didn't yell. He sat down on the floor at eye level and asked, "What's going on?" He wanted to understand, not punish. And even in his final days, when cancer had taken nearly all his strength, Robert still got down on the floor to play with his youngest daughter, Allison, just 2 days before he passed away. Everything changed in August 1996. Robert went in for a routine checkup. No one expected bad news. But the doctors discovered something terrifying: synovial sarcoma, a rare and aggressive form of cancer that attacks the soft tissues around the joints. It usually occurs in people under 30. Robert was 49. The tumor was located in his groin area. The treatment would be brutal chemotherapy, radiation, and multiple major surgeries. The irony was that at that moment he was at the peak of his career. He had just launched a new series. The Lazarus Man was in the best physical shape of his life, and his spirit was full of energy and excitement. The diagnosis hit like a punch to the heart, not just for Robert, but for all of Hollywood. The Lazarus Man was doing well on air. TNT had already agreed to a second season. But just weeks later, Castle Rock Entertainment suddenly pulled the plug. Only 20 of the 22 episodes ever aired. The final 2 episodes were shelved. In July 1996, Robert began chemotherapy. Every morning at 5:45, he arrived at the hospital where nurses pumped a cocktail of medications into his chest potassium bicarbonate anti-nausea drugs just to prepare him for the real ordeal: 4 hours of chemotherapy a day for 9 straight days each cycle. After the 6th day, he said, "It feels like pool chemicals are burning through my veins." He tried to distract himself, but the nausea and pain were inescapable. Radiation therapy was even worse. They used a lead mold to deliver tens of millions of radiation units, thousands of times stronger than an X-ray targeted at the tumor in his groin. They aimed to destroy the cancer cells without destroying everything around them. By February 1997, Robert had lost all his hair. His breath grew weaker. The nausea lingered relentlessly. He wasn't just fighting cancer, he was fighting to survive the treatment itself. And then a miracle happened. In October 1997, surgeons were preparing to remove the remaining part of the tumor. But when they operated, there was nothing. No tumor, no cancer cells, not even dead tissue. As if the disease had never existed. Robert was stunned. He said, "I started to wonder if I had ever really been sick." The doctors gave him a 5% chance of recurrence. For the first time in years, there was genuine hope. In 1998, Robert was declared cancer-free. He became a national spokesperson for the American Cancer Society. He declared, "I made a deal with God. If I live, I will spread hope to others." He returned to work starring in Love Boat: The Next Wave, and then fulfilled a lifelong dream performing on Broadway as Billy Flynn in Chicago. They thought the nightmare was over. With a 95% chance of cure, Robert and Heather began planning for the future. He donated his entire $125,000 prize from Who Wants to Be a Millionaire to cancer research. The couple established the Urick Foundation to fund sarcoma research at the University of Michigan. He traveled across the country urging people to get early screenings, and he began writing his memoir, An Extraordinary Life. Everything seemed headed for a happy ending, but it didn't. In November 2001, the cancer returned. This time it was more aggressive. The previous tumor had been solitary. Now it had spread throughout his body. No more surgeries, no more treatment options, no more chances. Robert was then filming his final sitcom, Emerald. His career ended just as his illness entered its final stage. He and Heather had once believed they had overcome it. Now they knew how the story would end. On April 16, 2002, at 7:22 p.m. at Los Robles Hospital in California, Robert Urich took his final breath. He was 55 years old. Heather and their 3 children, Ryan, 24, Emily, 22, and Allison, 4, were all by his bedside. He had only been hospitalized for a few days due to difficulty breathing. The night before his final television movie, Night of the Wolf, aired nationwide. Heather was 52 years old at the time. Suddenly widowed after 27 years of marriage, she had stood by her husband through every surgery, every round of chemotherapy, every moment of fear. They had lost a child to miscarriage. They built their family with love and adoption. Now she stood alone in the world with immense pain, but also with a courage no one expected. Three days later, nearly 1,000 people gathered at St. Charles Borromeo Church in North Hollywood to say goodbye to Robert. Stars like Tony Danza, Gavin MacLeod, and Tom Selleck were also present. Selleck said, "It's sad, because that's who Bob was. True friendship is what brought so many people here." Outside the church stood a black and white photo of Robert surrounded by white flowers. The man who once held the record for appearing in 15 official television series had passed away. But no one forgot him. Heather did not stop. Even before Robert passed away, they had started a fund to support patients. After his death, Heather transformed it into a full-fledged organization, the Robert Urich Foundation. She wanted to do more, organize events, raise funds, increase awareness, and sponsor research. She said, "Running the foundation gives me energy. It's like reliving every precious day I had with Robert." She continued raising their children, being both mother and father, carrying the love and memories of a husband, a father, and a silent hero forever in her heart. She never stopped giving. Heather turned her pain into purpose. In November 2017, Heather Menses Urick, the little Louisa Von Trapp, who once danced on screen in The Sound of Music, received a devastating diagnosis, glioblastoma multiforme, one of the most aggressive and deadly brain cancers known to medicine. She was 68 years old. And the cruelest part. This disease struck exactly 15 years after cancer had taken her beloved husband, actor Robert Urich, in 2002. For more than 15 years, Heather devoted her heart and time to fighting the illness that had already taken so much from her life. Through the Robert Urich Foundation, she organized fundraisers, supported cancer patients, and advocated for research funding, doing everything she could to help other families avoid the losses she had endured. But now, fate had turned. The very disease she had bravely fought now came for her. The diagnosis came just 4 weeks before Heather passed away. There was no time to prepare, no long goodbyes, no hope for new treatments. While Robert battled cancer for 6 years, long enough for hope, long enough to make plans, Heather's decline happened in the exact opposite way. Glioblastoma waits for no one. It spreads fast and destroys even faster. Ryan Urick, Heather's son, shared with the press that his mother's health declined almost immediately after the diagnosis. There was no time to begin treatment, no chance to participate in clinical trials, and no opportunity to rally the resources she had spent her life providing to others. For those who knew Heather, this was hard to accept. She was more than an actress. She had been a ballet dancer, a mother, a woman who lived fully in every moment. But in just a few short days, her voice weakened, her energy faded, and she slowly slipped away from the world. Friends in Hollywood, many who had stood by her for decades, barely had a chance to say goodbye. Heather Menses. Urich took her last breath on Christmas Eve, December 24, 2017 at 7:22 p.m. At the family home in Frankfort, Ontario, she passed away in the arms of her 3 children, Ryan, Emily, and Allison. Ryan later shared that his mother felt no pain. After nearly 4 weeks of fighting the inevitable, she chose to let go. The scene of her passing was both peaceful and deeply symbolic. Christmas Eve. A time of reunion, warmth, and hope became for her family a moment of everlasting loss. A haunting coincidence, Robert passed away on April 16, 2002, also at exactly 7:22 p.m. Heather departed exactly 15 years and 8 months later at the same hour. This cruel symmetry cannot be ignored. It deepens the pain. Even more heartbreaking is that just 1 year earlier, in September 2016, the Sound of Music family lost another member, Charmian Carr, who played Liesl. Now another Von Trapp sister has also gone. Fans around the world are heartbroken. The little girl who once sang "So Long Farewell" has truly said her final goodbye. Ryan's statement after his mother's passing was a heartfelt and deeply moving love letter. He didn't just announce the sad news, he shared every detail, every final moment. He emphasized that his mother passed peacefully without pain. Above all, she left with dignity, just as she had lived her entire life, strong, whole, and full of grace. Ryan wanted the world to remember that Heather was more than just Louisa Von Trapp. She was not just an actress, a dancer, or a strong mother. Heather Menses Urick was a symbol of perseverance, compassion, and an unwavering spirit in fighting for the cancer patient community. Even as her final days approached, she maintained her beauty, grace, and a heart open to everyone. Heather was not only a part of film history, but also a symbol of love, sacrifice, and undying hope. When the stage lights dimmed, she gently stepped away, leaving behind a legacy that lives forever in all of our hearts. What do you think about this inspiring story? Leave a comment below and let me know. If you find this video meaningful, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and support the channel so I can create more great videos for you.